morning. Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing? It's very bright today. My eyes are like, whoa, the sun is like, it's a little much, you know? It's a little much. You'd think that for 8:30 in the morning it could calm it down just a little and be just like, just a little less. But apparently you'd be wrong. You'd be wrong. Because it cannot calm down. It doesn't want to. It refuses to do that. It wants to shine. You just got out of the shower. Perfect timing. It wants to shine its little light right in my eyeballs forever. That's good, Anya. I'm glad that it made you feel a little bit better. Sometimes, you know, actually showered before book club also because we have a doctor's appointment morning, right? But sometimes, you know, a good shower or a bath can boost your mood a little. You know, I'm not saying it's going to fix anything overall, but you do feel nice to just be fresh, you know? That's not the case for everybody, but sometimes. But I know it can be difficult to, deal with, obviously. I love my flare. You overinflated your slimes and they won't fit. Yeah, that's normal. I would just get a secondary jar for now, and then it'll go back down. You guys want to see what 26 weeks looks like? This is 26. She's 26 in a couple of days. That's what she looks like. Okay, I tried the pistachio milk with decaf. It was really good. Oh, that is a good option. I haven't tried that. Wow, that sounds like a good one. Yes, our gummy bear has a doctor's appointment today. We are, Jennifer, we are. She has a doctor, well, I have a doctor's appointment today. We're not like getting scans or anything. It's just like a regular monthly checkup. It is our 6-month checkup, if you will. And we get to talk about all the things I don't want them to do at birth. Yes, I've done research since the 5-month checkup where they told me like, oh, we'll do this. Mediocre, Katie, if we're being honest. But I'm going to tell them today, hey, Grayson, all of the things that I don't want. You guys don't know this about me, but I'm a little bit crunchy granola. I'm not totally crunchy, but I am definitely a little crunchy. And my birth plan is crunchier than not. So, you know, I have to, I'm prepared to go uncrunchy if it's for the baby's health, but if it's not for the baby's health, I'm not really willing to back down on a couple of things. Oh, yeah, Heather. I'm not usually a very good advocate for myself, but I've found that when it comes to my daughter and what I'm willing to do here, I'm pretty strict. Like my doctor was like last time we were in there, she was like, I just understand, like everyone might as well get an epidural because like it's easier than not. And then I did all the research and I was like, I'm only gonna get it if I like literally cannot handle it otherwise, but I have a pretty high pain tolerance, so we're gonna try to just go it alone. Because I don't, like I know that there's research and stuff, but I'm not sure I 100% trust putting medication in my own body at that time because I have such negative reactions to medications and I don't know if she's going to have my reactions. Yes, exactly, Katie. I believe in vaccines and I believe in science, but I want it to be as and it also, exactly, Grayson, and it can cause all sorts of weird things. In the past, anytime I have had to have any kind of, which one, Becca, curious? Anytime I've had to have any kind of surgery, even like a minor like wisdom teeth surgery, my blood pressure has dropped so intensely from the needles. Yeah, I don't want that either, Heather. Oh yeah, I don't need that one, Becca, obviously. That like I have not been allowed to have pain medication in those situations, so I know my pain tolerance is good because I had to go through like my PCOS surgery, wisdom teeth, etc. on no pain meds because they were like, your blood pressure's too low. If you take pain meds, you could lose heart rate. And I was like, okay. And they made me get up and walk around the hospital after I had been literally sliced in half, you know. So I was like, well, if I can handle that, I can handle this. Word limit is getting too soon. Yeah, it always does, Katie. It always does. We always have like multiple things. But yeah, my mom got her wisdom teeth out, no pain meds. Wild, Anya. It was a wild experience, I have to tell you. Not being able to get pain meds in certain situations is really eye-opening. I wasn't literally cut in half, Becca. That was extremely dramatic of me. It was done laparoscopically, but remember how I had to have cysts taken off my ovaries? It feels like you were cut in half. You're not actually cut in half, but it feels like it. And my laparoscopic scars are right here, you know. That's where they are. So, but it feels like you've been cut in half. I'm not gonna lie. Baby's good, Alyssa. Thank you for asking. It was a magic trick. It was indeed a magic trick, Roxy. Yes. Advocate for yourself and the baby, and you can stay still. Yeah, the fact that I loved was after the C-section, they were like, "Here's some Tylenol." I know, right? Yeah. You're like, thanks. I've also read, and I don't know the validity of it completely because, like, how can you really know? Hey, Candace. But I've read that the bounce back, if you don't have an epidural, is a little bit quicker. Seriously, Grayson, we are rock stars. You got this at 8 babies with no payments. Yeah, Carla, I think I can do it. I really do. And you're a rock star for doing it 8 times. I'm going to do it 1 time. They didn't even give me the option of payments when I got my wisdom teeth out. Really? But I've heard that the bounce back is a little bit easier if you don't have the epidural. Well, that's different, Alyssa. If you have to have it, of course, you know. I mean, like, I'll do the same thing. In my birth plan, like, if I have to do it, you know, I just always held on to the fact that women, our bodies are amazing, know what to do. Yeah, I mean, like, that's obviously not the case for everyone. Of course, I get that. So I'm gonna have like a line that's like, in case of these situations, if the baby is in peril in any way, etc., and so on. Cut me open, whatever, fine, I don't care. But like, unless it's that detrimental, props not. My mom and my sister have quite a bit lower pain tolerances than I do, and they both were like, they had to have an epidural. They literally couldn't handle it. Like, my sister was like looking at her husband asking for death, like literally. And then as soon as she got the epidural, she was like, everything's great, you know? So some people literally can't do it, and I totally get that. But I think I can. Ended up getting, yeah, well, of course. You have, you know, especially with triplets, you have to get that. Oh yeah, I ended up being 2 emergency C-section, tried very hard up until that point. Yeah, you never know. You never know. My mom had me naturally, and she had my brother and sister C-section because they were too big for her body. Oh my gosh, Alyssa, I am so sorry to hear that. That is terrifying. Yeah, I was a small baby, so my mom was able to give birth to me naturally, but my mom is a very small person. She's only 5 feet tall, and my sister was 14 pounds at birth, you guys. And they were like, it's not happening. And my mom was also 42 at the time that she had my sister. So she was 42 with a 14-pound baby, and they were like, you are too small for this. And she was like, okay, I guess we're having a C-section. You know what I mean? So like, there are situations outside of your control, but my baby is not tracking big at all, so I think I'll be okay. Yeah, 14 pounds when you're only, I know, well, they had to cut her out, right, Heather? I mean, like, come on, at that point. Yeah, or not 14 pounds, maybe she was 12 pounds, 7 ounces, but either way, it's like big, you know? Yeah, my baby is currently tracking about the 48th percentile in length, but she's tracking the 38th percentile in everything else, so she's little. Not little in like a scary way. They're not like concerned about her size or anything, but she's not going to be 12 pounds, you know? Her legs are longer than the rest of her, but that's about it. She got her dad's legs and feet. All right, bye, Katie. See you later. We actually got an amazing photo. Some of you have seen it, of her feet in the last ultrasound, and we looked at them and they are literally Secret Husband's exact feet. Grayson, I don't know if Mabel told you, but Mabel literally texted me and was like, those are our family's feet. I was like, yes, they are, because they did not come from me. My feet don't look like that. Hopefully she's graceful. Yes, I hope she's graceful. Yeah, you gotta find that, Julia. But other than her feet and her legs, all the rest of her is like really petite. So she's like little, but she's got these long legs, which is really funny. Oh, you were sitting together when she said you there. Yeah, I never know, you know. But it is very funny. Mabel was like, yeah, but those are our feet. I was like, yes. I joked to my nieces were born with flippers for feet. Yeah, she's got her dad's feet, that's for sure. He was like, oh man, I hope that they're smaller though. I was like, I don't think she's gonna have men's feet, honey. I think she just like has the design of your foot, but like proportional for a little girl. Yes, she'll have to grow into her feet. That's really cute, Roxy. Yeah, she'll grow into them. It'll be fine. Listen, maybe she's gonna play soccer. He played soccer. He was really good at it. Secret Husband was also a pitcher in baseball, and he was very good at that too. So I wonder if sometimes when I feel her, it's actually her punching me. I have the design of my grandfather's foot, but no size. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Tori. That's literally exactly what I was saying. Like, her foot looks like his. Like, if you hold it up, you're like, oh my gosh, it's literally, your 13-year-old is size 10? Girl or boy? Either way, it's big. But that's what I was saying. I know, yeah. Secret Husband was a pitcher in baseball, and he was good at it. Yeah. Girl, wow. That's like Zoe. You guys, Zoe's so tall. You're gonna get restricted for saying punch probably, but probably not, because I have my book. Can you guys see that my book is here? So like, I put my book up on the TikTok shop, not because I care if you buy it on TikTok shop, but to stop me from getting restrictions, and so far it works. TikTok is sus, because you don't get restrictions as long as you list something, you know? But anyway, if you're new here and you didn't know, I wrote a book and it actually is perfect for Christmas gifts. So if you're looking for a cozy Christmas romance to gift to someone in your life who loves to read, consider mine. It is teenage friendly. I would give it to anyone who is 13 and above. Size 10, not 19. Yes. Anyway, that's my pitch. TikTok shop, my book, it's on it. I've said all the words. Now don't restrict me. Hooray. We're putting our tree up next week. We have to go get our decorations from the other house, and I'm going to babysit my niece and nephew on Friday next week. So we're going to bring all our Christmas stuff back with us, and we will decorate immediately after that. But today we are reading, as we do every morning. Good morning to anyone who isn't usually with us. We are on chapter 4 of an amazingly hilarious book called Hex and the City by Kate Johnson. If you have not read the first 3 chapters with us, that's okay. Stick around and enjoy it anyway. The first 3 chapters have been uploaded to my YouTube, which is linked in my bio, and you can listen to them and then join us again tomorrow to be caught up. So that's where we're at. And we will read chapter 4 today. Let's go. Alex was woken by the smell of coffee and the manic clatter of the most terrible thing. A morning person. Hey, I'm a morning person. That's not very nice. Come on, Alex. He was made to pull the pillow over his head, only there wasn't even a pillow there. He rested his arm on the sofa, which he discovered as he woke up a bit more was very much shorter than he was. Whose sofa even was this? Who had he gone home with last night? And why had she kicked him out to sleep on the sofa? He didn't snore that badly. He had no duvet either. He was covered by a velvet robe embroidered with gold, and as he stared at it in bemusement, last night came back to him in vivid, horrifying detail. Yelena's fall, the destruction of the stage set, and probably half of the auditorium too. Rapunzel trying to seduce him for some cursed amulet, stumbling home barefoot through the rainy streets of Soho towards his rented flat, only to remember that he had no key, no phone, no wallet, and had to concentrate very hard to remember where Jonah was staying. He groaned and rested one arm over his eyes before he attempted to open them. His skin smelled of smoke and sweat and some floral scent that had to be from Rapunzel. Poppy, that was the name she'd given him. Poppy, like the opium, and just as dangerous. Oh, well, morning sunshine, trilled the voice of his best friend and manager, who was rapidly sliding down the scale of Alex's estimation. Why was he so cheerful? Why was he so perky? It had to be, what, like the middle of the night or something? It's just before 1, and the hospital said that you can visit her at 2. 1 a.m., Alex said doubtfully. What do you think, princess? Something landed on his stomach then. They were his street clothes, and his phone, and his wallet. I got your stuff from the theater. I don't want to know what you were doing in this robe, Jonah said firmly, or what you were even up to last night. Just please tell me we don't got another vengeful ex on our hands. Alex scrunched up his face as he recalled Poppy yelling after him that he wasn't even that good of a kisser. No, probably not, he said. His ego was just too fragile right now to contemplate whether she'd actually meant that he was a bad kisser or not. Well, good. Now, don't you ever disappear like that after a complete disaster without telling me where you're going, or I will find you and I will castrate you, said Jonah as Alex appeared to move his arm and see his friend standing there wielding a bread knife. He swallowed. No, absolutely not. I promise not to do it again. Good. Jonah smiled at him, but there was a definite edge to his smile. Now, it goes without saying that you're paying personally for the cleaning surcharges on this place, right? Your feet, he shuddered, are unspeakably dirty. All of Alex felt unspeakable. He sat upright and every bit of him ached, and he was fairly sure his feet were probably bleeding. He'd walked barefoot through Soho wearing just a velvet robe in the rain in October. It was a wonder that Jonah would even let him in the house in that condition. The bathroom is that way, Jonah said pointedly. Brought your shampoo and your conditioner. Much obliged, Alex sighed and went to do as he was told. The shower felt amazing, and Alex realized that he hadn't even allowed himself to think about the terror of last night, but it was so clearly stored in all his muscles because his neck felt like concrete. His hair, surprisingly, wasn't actually too bad, but then he recalled Rapunzel had brushed it, and it had been some terrible mixture of lust and fury that came over him in that moment. Her soft hands and merry eyes, her warm laughter, her hair, which had seemed to Alex, through the shock and vodka, to be semi-sentient. Was that even possible? And she'd sent by her, whatever that old woman had been, she'd been sent a text about seducing him for some amulet. Alex paused in the middle of the act of toweling his hair dry. She seduced him to receive a cursed amulet. No. He must have been imagining things. That was an insane thought. The shock had clearly affected him worse than he had realized. Clean, dressed, and a lot more fragrant, he allowed Jonah to ply him with eggs and gingerly put on a pair of thick socks on his sore feet. It's because you're Pisces, Jonah said sagely. My Nana was a martyr to her feet, and her birthday was just a week before yours. Do we have any Pisces in the house, and are you mean to your feet? Sorry. I have a lot of friends who are Pisces. I don't think they're actually... Whatever. That's a ridiculous statement. No, it's because I walked around London barefoot, not because I'm a Pisces, Alex said. It was a minor miracle that he hadn't even been mugged. Then again, on the other hand, he was built like a Viking and dressed like a lunatic. Don't you start with that astrology bullshit. It sounded perilously close to crystals and candles. And wait, had Rapunzel lit a candle without touching it last night? No. He must have imagined that too. Yeah, whatever. You go and see Yelena. You do the pretty thing with all the words and apologies, Jonah said. And before Alex could protest, he added pointedly, and I will go see
The insurance people. Unless you want to swap and I'll go to the hospital and you'll deal with the insurance people.
Remind me when visiting hours are again, said Alex.
Troubled, hungover, and exhausted, he allowed Jono to get him into a cab and send him to the hospital, where he mustered up a bright and shining morning face for the nurses in Yelena's ward. Oh, I'm sorry, she already has visitors, said the woman at the desk. She had long, bleach blonde hair in a plait, and the pen in her top pocket was leaking. We can only allow 2 people at the time. Alex kept his smile in place. She does. Wonderful. Her family's come, he suggested, despite having no clue whether Yelena even had family in the country. Yes, I think so, replied the nurse, frowning a little, and then she cleared. They are speaking Polish with her, so it must be her family. Oh, well, yes, there can be no other explanation then, agreed Alex with a cheerfulness that he definitely didn't feel. He tried to peer past her without making it too obvious. Probably it was just some of the other dancers who'd come to visit Yelena. That would make sense. There was no need for him to be suspicious, but he leaned forward a little anyway. Can I ask, he said in a lower tone, how you keep the ends of your hair so incredibly shiny? I condition mine and keep it trimmed, and the split ends still drive me absolutely crazy. Oh, her cheeks pinked a little. Well, I use a deep conditioner on it once a month. I suppose I really should do it more often, but really, do tell me, which brand? I've tried hot oil, I've tried everything. Alex flipped his blonde mane at her and wondered if he was overdoing the flirting a little bit. But as she listed the treatments that she used on her hair, she fiddled with the end of her braid, and that meant that her eyes weren't on the computer screen as Alex, who had very fast vision indeed, and perfect reading at strange angles, and due to many an audition, clocked Yelena's room number. What a sneak. I gotta tell you, this guy's a sneak. Really? And that's all you do? Well, I must say, it looks fantastic on you, he said inanely as she paused. Oh wait, sorry, that was her. Sorry, that was... Let me back up just a second. Really? And that's it? Well, it looks fantastic on... Oh no, he did say that part. Sorry, he said that. And then... Okay, so I gotta tell you guys, British books separate their quotes differently than we do here in America. So it's very difficult to tell who's speaking sometimes, because in an American published book, if you have a quote by one person, in this case, let's say Alex, it would say, really, and that's it. Well, it looks fantastic on you, he said inanely, and then she paused. And then if we're starting a quote by another person, you would have it on another line, but they include it in the same line, even though now she's speaking. It's very crazy. And my brain, like, it's very hard when you're cold reading to, like, keep up with all that. She paused. I must remember to look that up, really. Cold reading to, like, keep up with all that. She paused. I must remember to look that up, really. Oh no, okay, so in this case it's still him, but it's done in the past. I must remember to look that up. Really, you just do it once a month, he said, and then he sauntered away casually. Okay, well, I was wrong in this case, but they have done it in the past. With, like, him and Jono, especially, that's where it gets really confusing, because it's 2 guys. Like, it's like, how am I supposed to know which guy is talking? Because they're both he, you know, but you can tell sometimes because of their character. Anyway, whatever. You don't need me to explain publishing to you, because I obviously don't know what I'm talking about. And then he paused at the corner and he got out his phone. He pretended to read and respond to something until the nurse moved away, and then he lopped off down the corridor towards Yelena's room. He heard the voices before he got there, and they did seem to be speaking what was Polish, and then he heard laughter, both Yelena's and, yes, the warm tones of Rapunzel, Poppy, whatever her name was. He paused, took a breath, and put on his brightest, most charming smile before he opened the door, whereupon 3 women turned to look at him, and not even Macbeth's witches could have been more terrifying in that moment. The older woman, who'd been with Poppy last night, sat by the bed holding a box of chocolates out to Yelena, who was in the act of choosing one. His formerly glamorous assistant was bruised and splinted, looked exhausted, but there was a brightness to her eyes that made him wonder what had been in those chocolate wrappers that were strewn all over her bed. And then there was Poppy, whose ridiculous Rapunzel hair seemed to have fluffed up like a cat about to attack before she turned and gave him a look so skewering that it actually robbed Alex of his breath for a moment, and all of a sudden it was as if she could see right through him, through Axel, through Alex, right down to the core of him, deep inside where he was still that frightened, miserable kid huddled in the dark trying to smother the happiness with food. Percy Beaker, what a creep. Ah! Painy Storm, said the older woman, Iris presumably, or should I say, Mr. Rain. Alex pulled himself together, closed the door behind himself very quickly, and thought, be charming, Alex, be handsome, be dazzling, and then they won't be looking for anything underneath the facade. I'd be obliged if you didn't, he said, smiling through his clenched teeth, and then Yelena said something in Polish, and the other two laughed. Alex smiled as if he was also in on the joke and moved a little closer. He wanted to take Yelena's hand, but Poppy sat stubbornly in the way, and he had no desire to brush up against that hair and that scent again and be transported back to the little shop in the No, he reinforced his smile and sat tenderly. Yelena, how are you feeling? She eyed him suspiciously and said something else in Polish. I see, Alex lied. Well, she said she's in excruciating pain and it's all your fault, Poppy said without turning around. Poppy, admonished Iris. She smiled indulgently at Alex and said, well, aren't you just a handsome young thing? Do have a sit down, lovey. Dear Yelena here isn't up to speaking English right now. Are you, cuckoo? How's your Polish, Alex? Alex found himself in a chair without entirely knowing how he got in the chair. I'm afraid to say I have sadly neglected Polish studies, he said. Yeah, that's not the only thing you neglected, muttered Poppy. Oh, now, I'm sure I do remember your grandfather, dear. Was he on the stage too? Asked Iris. Alex gratefully turned his attention to her. My grandfather? No, very much not on the stage. Grandpa Rain had been an insurance clerk in Keene Bowles who had a morbid fear of public speaking. Grandpa Markham had been a factory foreman at the time of his death and when Alex was 3. And he had often been spoken of as a sturdy man who didn't even hold with any nonsense. No, I doubt that you do know either of them, he smiled at Iris. They were not the most glamorous of men. Too much? Poppy's eyes rolled when he said it, but Iris seemed to enjoy the flattery. Well, perhaps your great-grandfather then, she said, and Alex laughed because this was part of the Axel Storm story. His great-grandfather had been a stage magician, which made for a nice, easy story to tell the press about how he'd first learned magic, especially since the Great Magnifico had never used his real name. And after the horrors of World War II, he'd put away his magic box and never spoken of it to anyone. If Granny hadn't found it in the attic after his death, nobody ever would have known. And now she was gone too, and there was barely anyone to associate Axel Storm with the real man behind the Great Magnifico. To Iris, he just said, so you have read my website. But you couldn't possibly have known my great-grandfather. He'd be, 109 by now. Well, I'm older than I look, Iris said with a hint of self-satisfaction. But certainly not 109, he laughed. Poppy muttered something under her breath. Now, he was a magician, Iris said with a sigh of nostalgia. Café de Paris, matinee idols, looks, we all swooned over him. Terrible shame that he did give it up, though, she said. Alex, who was doing rapid sums in his head to try to work out how old Iris could possibly be if she had been a child when the Great Magnifico was on stage, he nodded just on autopilot. Yes, war does change everyone, he said vaguely, but here we are, neglecting poor Yelena. Can you understand me then, Katku? Coat-coo, muttered Poppy. That's what I said, Alex added smoothly. Perhaps one of you can translate, if Yelena's feeling too tired for English. He kept his smile in place and rudely leaned right past Poppy to take Yelena's hand as he told her how very sorry he was that she'd been hurt and that the insurance people were investigating right now to see what could have caused it, and that he knew she was vigilant about training and safety at all times. That last part might have been laying out a bit thick, but Jono had impressed on him the legal importance of making it clear that he, Alex Rain, must not take any blame for her accident, even in a sympathetic way. "No, don't even buy her a gift," he said. "It could look like an admission of guilt if you do." A bit late for feeling guilty about gifts, Alex thought ruefully. The pendant was not even evident right now. "I know I checked the harnesses," Yelena said fretfully, translated by Iris. "I always do, and so did the stunt coordinator. And Jose. We checked each other." Her face crumpled at that, and Alex said, "Yeah, he will be all right, Yelena. Don't you worry about Jose." She began crying, and Iris hesitated before translating the next bit. But the more or less of what the gist Alex got was, Yelena was sobbing away, swept away by passion, didn't mean to ruin everything, might be in love with Jose, etc., etc. Even Poppy began to look uncomfortable by the exchange. "Well, she, began Iris right then. The door opened, and a different nurse came in. Not the one Alex had charmed. This one looked like she had run an orphanage in Penny Dreadful. "All right, who's making the patient cry?" she said, and even Iris cringed a bit. "Why are there 3 of you in here? Rules say 2. "Well," Alex began as Poppy said, "well, you see," and Iris murmured, "My dear." But the nurse was not to be moved. "Everybody out, for the good of my patient." Alex was not inclined to argue, and it didn't seem that the others were either. He gave Yelena an apologetic look and smiled as charmingly as he could at the nurse and held the door for Iris and Poppy. The 2 women exchanged a look that contained an entire conversation, and then Iris moved off to the nurse's station, and Poppy folded her arms and glared at Alex. Under the bright hospital lights and without the fog of shock and the alcohol, she didn't quite look as otherworldly as she had last night. Her hair was still a healthy hazard, and her eyes were, well, she had her colored contact lenses in, he would amend to his mind, but she looked like a normal young woman, albeit in a sort of like peacock-colored dress and training multicolored scarf, and good grief, even her shoes were mismatched. But he supposed at least they went along with her eyes. From the nurse's station came Iris's voice, kindly passing on her compliments to the staff about how well they were looking after her friend, and it hadn't been the same when the staff took care of her dear George, who had been so ill. And "George," murmured Poppy, looking faintly surprised. "So you, speak Polish," he said, and her brows drew down again. "No, Iris speaks Polish." "But I heard you... What are you doing here, anyway?" Her arms folded, unfortunately pushing up her breast so Alex could not stop his eyes from following the movement for all the money in the world. He felt those breasts pressed up against his chest last night. He'd cupped the swells of one of them in his hand and ran his thumb over the exposed skin, felt her soft flesh, and then he forced his gaze back upward. Surely he had only been looking for a split second. She couldn't have noticed that he was looking... No, of course she noticed. He cleared his throat. "What am I doing here? What are you doing here?" "Well, I'm doing the decent thing," she said piously. "Iris and I wanted to follow through on our help from last night." "Well, aren't you just a saint then?" said Alex sourly. "Well, at least I'm not just here to head off a lawsuit," she snapped back. "Been to see Jose, have you? Handshakes and reassurances all around, was it?" "Well, the insurance investigators will determine how the accident happened," Alex said, and her expression said she knew perfectly well that his manager had made him memorize that phrase. "Yeah, sure. And when they find out it was caused by a cursed amulet, what are you going to say to them then?" Alex rubbed his head, which still hurt, possibly because of the vodka that she'd poured down his throat the night before, and possibly because of the stage that collapsed, or maybe it was because of the last 24 hours that had all been Nightmare on Elm Street productions. "I'll say that that's absolute nonsense, because of course it is." He didn't know what had caused the accident. The best outcome would be it was something that wasn't anybody's fault, that his insurance would cover. He had no idea what that would be. Right now, he didn't really care what that would be, but he suspected that cursed by a magic amulet wasn't going to be included in his policy. "Not that it's an amulet or cursed," Poppy amended quickly, because... Oh, wait a second. What now? Her phone was ringing, and she glanced at it and made a noise of frustration. The door to Yelena's room swung, and the terrified nurse exited, her gaze zeroing in on them. Now phone's in the wall, please. You can take that call in a corridor if you have to. Poppy looked torn for a moment, and then she exhaled quickly and said, "It's my mom. I really should. Don't go anywhere," she added to Alex as she hustled toward the exit. "Mom, hi." "Where the hell would I even go?" Alex murmured, because it wasn't as if he had rehearsals or anywhere to get to. His show was on indefinite hold. The theater was in no state to operate, and everything was under investigation. Apart from what he expected to be a frustrating few sessions with the police and insurance people, he had absolutely no plans. He blinked at the hospital corridor. No plans. When was the last time he had been able to say that? "Alex Storm," the nurse said, fighting an urge to promise he'd wash his hands and done his homework and protest that he hadn't been the one smoking in the toilets. Alex found a nervous smile for her. "Yes, on my better days they do call me Axel Storm," he said. "Yes, I've seen your posters. Shame about the accident. Yelena wanted you to have this." She held out the lapis lazuli pendant, somewhat dirty and twisted now. She was making some kind of apology, I do think. Her English failing her right now, and then again, she is on quite strong painkillers. Anyway, she definitely did tell me to give it to you because you deserve it. "Deserve it?" he said. The nurse shrugged. "Like I said, could have been lost in translation, but now visiting hours are almost over, and I believe you do have another castmate that you wanted to see." It was a clear instruction. Get out of my ward. Alex tucked the pendant into his pocket and obliged her. No, sorry, Mom. I had to move outside." Poppy stood in the corridor of the ward and tried not to peer back through the windows to make it too obvious. "Are you at work? I thought it was one of your days off. That's why I'm calling. Are you still part-time?" Poppy took a deep breath and reminded herself that her mother did love her and wanted her to succeed in life, and that she wasn't making a deliberate point about only working part-time at the shop, for which Poppy also made jewelry and candles whilst practicing her witchcraft as well. Not that she ever told her mom about the last part, no. "No, I'm not at work. I was just visiting a friend who's in the hospital," she added for bonus points. "Oh dear, I do hope it's nothing serious," her mother said. No, people just go to hospitals for funsies, Poppy thought. "Yeah, no, it's okay. She'll be fine in the end. How are you?" "Well, very excited, actually. Your cousin Sarah is getting married." Poppy felt a fake smile stretch on her face, even though her mom couldn't see it. The reaction was automatic. She'd been doing it all her life. What? Hi, I wrote the book that's linked in the thing. TikTok wants me to tell you that. It's there, and I wrote it. And we're reading books, because this is book club. I wrote a book, we read books, it's all book content. It's all related. Thank you. Have a nice day. Books, books, books. This is a book. Get the book. The end. Okay. They're like, this is not related content to the product you chose. Yes, it is. They're all rom-coms. They're all rom-coms. It's all books in the same genre. Books, books, books in the same genre. Books, books, books. We're reading them. I wrote that one. Ridiculous. Where was I? Poppy felt a fake smile stretch out across her face, even though her mom couldn't see her. The reaction was automatic. She'd been doing it all her life. Sarah was 2 years younger than Poppy, but had been skipped ahead as a child. She got perfect grades all through school and even found time to take extra subjects. Naturally, she'd gone to Oxford, where she'd got a first-class degree in law and been headhunted by several prestigious firms, and was now a human rights lawyer in Brussels, where, naturally, French was among the language she was fluent in. Poppy smiled politely at the news of each of these tremendous events and got on with being slightly rubbish at everything, and wasn't an art class, getting a degree in jewelry design and working part-time at a novelty shop while doing housework for an old lady with a lot of cats. Not the same. And doing witchcraft, she reminded herself every now and then. Poppy could do things that Sarah could only dream of, she just couldn't do them in public. Poppy's parents had never compared her outright to Sarah. They'd never expressed any disappointment with her life choices, really in any way. They'd shown her nothing but pride in her degree, and her mother even wore the jewelry that Poppy made. And yet, Poppy's family was full of people with proper professions, teachers, lawyers, doctors, accountants. They considered her mother to be the wacky one, and she was a bloody vicar. Meanwhile, I've accidentally made a cursed amulet and my hair keeps eating sweets that it finds on the pavement, she thought to herself. Yeah, well, that's great, Poppy finally said. Who's she marrying, the Crown Prince of Jordan? Oh, don't be silly, love. They broke up ages ago. Poppy had no idea if her mother was joking in that moment. No, she's marrying Caspar, you know, the equestrian man. The Olympic equestrian, who had also been transitioning into politics with excellent hopes of joining Dutch Parliament at the next election. Poppy, who tried to be a good person but couldn't bloody help being a human being, personally always thought his ears stuck out too much and his laugh was a little bit annoying. Really, how lovely for them, she said politely. And do you know what else? Sarah and Caspar have also cured cancer, she thought. Maybe they solved world hunger. They've invented a teleportation device. No. What? She finally said. They've asked me to officiate, her mom said. Well, Mom, that's great. Poppy was pleased for her mother. She was always trying to remind various friends and relatives that their friendly family vicar was on hand for weddings, christenings, and, well, inevitably funerals as well. Your father's already worrying about the helicopter parking and security arrangements. Well, that's Dad for you, Poppy said vaguely, trying not to be spiteful about the need for helicopter parking. How's everyone else anyway? Did Lizzie get back together with her girlfriend? That would be an excellent wedding for you to officiate at. Her cousin Lizzie worked in computer game design and was Poppy's favorite, not to mention an excellent distraction. Well, she did, but I don't know if they'll ever get married. I'm still holding out hope that one day I can do it, but her stepmom will probably come around faster than the C of V. Ugh, said Poppy, stepping out of the way of an orderly with a wheelchair. I still don't know what Uncle Jeff even sees in her. She's so vile to Lizzie. The family drama had swept her back up, as family drama always did. Mom updated Poppy on Cousin Amanda's children and Aunt Dee's many chihuahuas and asked where she was in the saga of Uncle Bob's messy divorce. But by the time Iris wandered into the corridor looking surprised, Poppy was deep into the intricacies of why her cousin Zach wasn't talking to his in-laws, and the thoughts of pendants and rock star magicians had totally flown out of her mind. Well, they should have known. He's sensitive to that sort of thing. I mean, do they even listen to him at all? She said as Iris stood there with her hands on her hips. Wait a second, Mom. Hold on. She looked inquiringly at Iris, and as she did so, She looked inquiringly at Iris, and as she did, the warm, gossipy chat with her mom drained right out of her, and she remembered she'd come to the hospital for a good reason. One good reason. And given Iris's stony countenance, it seems she'd failed. Fuck, she whispered at her mother's side. Sorry, look, Mom, I've got to go. There's stuff that I have to do. Can I call you back later today or tomorrow? And yeah, you can totally tell me what Sarah's going to make her bridesmaids wear. Yeah, no, listen. Okay, I love you, bye. She finished up speedily under Iris's gaze. Sorry, hey, that was my mom, and she sends her love, Poppy added, hopefully putting her phone back in her pocket. Well, yes, and you can send it back, Iris said crisply. Where is Axel Storm? Poppy looked around as if a very large Viking with supermodel looks was hiding behind the vending machine or something. She said, he's not in the ward? Iris raised an eyebrow. All right, I'm sorry. I haven't spoken to my mom in ages and family's really important, okay? Are visiting hours over? Can we, mojo the nurse to let us back in or something? We could. Yeah, right? Seriously, Grayson, that would never happen. We could, Iris said, but the pendant is gone. I asked, and Yelena has given it back to Axel. And I didn't see him go past me, she said. I think I would have noticed that. Well, there appears to be more than one door to this hospital, Iris sighed. We'll have to do a finding spell, and we can't do that here. Far too... Ugh. She waved her hands at the clinical cleanliness of the hospital as if it personally offended her. What have you got in your pockets? Poppy had learned most of her magic from Iris, and the first thing she learned was that crystals and candles were useless if you didn't have any power or intent. A real witch, Iris sniffed, could do magic without silly props, and although she acknowledged the props did help. Oh, I'm glad the message loaded. We're reading Hex in the City. Poppy felt in the pockets of her skirt and turned up a fuzzy throat sweet lip balm that had nearly run out, and then began to rummage in her satchel for more. Well, I have a candle stub, a handful of zirconias to finish that tiara I started last week, and oh, I have the program from last night, she said, brandishing it, and Iris nodded approvingly. Excellent. Now, Iris looked around. They won't let us light a candle in here, I do suppose. Come on, then. This bit of London is awash in garden squares. Most of the garden squares in this part of London were privately fenced off, but the sort of thing never stopped Iris. She held the candle stub while Poppy used one of the zirconia, fake, just like Axel Storm's entirety, and the theater program to concentrate on him. And when Poppy had first been told by Iris nearly a decade ago that she clearly was a witch, she'd expected to learn spells and incantations to mix potions with specific and gruesome ingredients and maybe to have her hands glow occasionally. Iris said she could do all that if she liked, minus the glowing hands bit, but really all she needed was something to focus her will on. Words were just words. Crystals were just crystals, but if they represented something to Poppy, they would sharpen her intent. Well, this crystal will be here to find Alex Rain, she muttered, holding it cupped in her hand, and this crystal will find Alex Rain. The sound of his voice, Iris prompted her. The color of his eyes, perhaps? That deep baritone was so warm and velvety, stripped of the archaic cadence of his Axel Storm persona. The vivid, intense blue of his eyes blazing with his anger at her, the roughness of his jaw, stubble that abraded her hands and lips, the breathless shiver that ran through her when his tongue touched hers, the scent rising hot from his skin as she pressed her body wholly against it. Ow! Poppy's eyes flew open as Iris blew the small flame out that had erupted from the crystal. She tossed it from one hand to the other as it cooled, glowing gently. Ha! I bet perfect cousin Sarah can't do that, Poppy thought to herself. Well, I really have never seen that happen before, Iris observed. What on earth were you thinking about? Just some really intense thoughts, Poppy said, attempting a smile that she knew wouldn't fool Iris for even a second. The crystal in her hand was drawing her towards the south edge of the garden, and she hitched her satchel onto her shoulder to follow its lead. But 2 steps later she paused and turned back. Hey, aren't you coming? Iris just smiled and adjusted her hat. No, dear, you'll need to move fast, and I expect my hips aren't what they used to be. Besides, I can't hold your hand through everything now, can I? But the amulet, the pendant, how am I gonna uncurse it? Iris shrugged. Well, if it isn't obvious, bring it back home and we'll see. Now off you go. He's probably moved off a distance already. Poppy badly wanted to ask Iris if she was sure about this, but Iris always was sure. So she fastened her coat, pocketed the candle stub, and set off. Poppy knew finding spells. She lost things frequently enough that she could practically do them in her sleep. She knew the pull of the crystal would get stronger the closer that she was, and probably warmer and brighter too. And right now it already seemed pretty warm. But then, just then, it burst into flames. Would she be able to walk a distance and have it not happen again? Would she need a bike, a cab, a train, a plane? The crystal didn't care much for street patterns, which meant it led her right through the middle of University College, a post-grad bar, and the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, cutting right across Russell Square. But by the time she passed the Duke of Bedford's statue, it was getting even warmer in her hand, and Poppy got her phone out and pretended to be consulting it. She didn't think the Advanced Legal Studies students would have much truck with a girl following a magic crystal. Past the back of the British Museum, though, in Bloomsbury Square Gardens, and then on toward the sudden busyness of High Holborn, but that was too far. It wanted her to go back down into what looked like a private entrance to a service yard. The crystal was pulsating pretty strongly in her hand now, and the glow showing through her fingers. Poppy was clearly in a residential area. Where was she going to find Alex? At his home, maybe? At someone else's home? In bed with someone else after all of this? You're very pretty, Yelena had said to Poppy before Alex arrived in the hospital. Don't let him seduce you. He's good in bed, but he won't stick around, and he doesn't have the attention span for it. He probably went home with another girl last night while I was in the hospital. Huh, what kind of girl would ever do that? Poppy had said quickly and changed the subject. And now she stood in a little Dickensian back street, staring up at the building with crystal clear but that the crystal clearly wanted her to go into. A perfectly ordinary brick terrace with a shop on the ground floor and a door next to it listing several different flats. Several flats? How the hell was she supposed to know which one the crystal wanted her to go to? Hey, Crystal, any ideas? She muttered to it, and it just pulsed harder in her hand. Right at the point where she resolved to magic open the lock and see what the crystal wanted her to go to after that, she heard a scream from above, and then a lot of swearing, and then something flew through the upstairs wall, not the window, the wall, right through it, without even disturbing a brick. Ghosts? Said Poppy, staring up in confusion. Poppy had grown up next door to a church, and she still lived next to a graveyard. From her bedroom window, she could see the peaceful, ivory-colored tombs of the Highgate Cemetery, as residents long ago turned to bone and dust. Some of them, inevitably, had left their spirits behind, wandering the mortal realm as if, well, in life, some of them were real assholes. At the age of 10, she'd befriended a sad little girl called Emmeline, who no one else could see, and who never left the churchyard. At the age of 16, she developed a phobia about the certain bus stop on the way to school because there was an angry, bloody specter of a teenage boy lurking there. At the age of 18, she met Iris, who offered Poppy a dirt-cheap room in a huge and beautiful house 5 minutes from which happened to be opposite a graveyard. And one of the first things Iris had taught Poppy, therefore, was how to block out ghosts. And with enough practice, it was like closing an eye. But these days, she mostly kept it closed. Sometimes, though, something really strong could force it open. The kind of spirit anyone could see, even if their magical sensibility was so far past zero, it was beyond Poppy's comprehension. It appeared that this thing, flying out of Alex's flat and landing on the road so hard that it made the ground shake, was one of those things. But you're incorporeal, Poppy said, frowning at it. How did you... The ghost noticed her then. Most of them did. Iris said it came with the job. If it was a job, I'd get paid, Poppy thought to herself. Poppy stood horrified, unable to move as the spirit came closer. To her left, a door opened and someone said, "What the hell just came through my shop?" But her muscles were frozen. The spirit stalking toward her was female and naked, except for a loincloth and an elaborate headdress, which consisted of a braid and a beaded wig and a large crown of gold. And her face was the stuff of nightmares, eyes that were black holes, and a mouth that opened into a chasm of darkness, dark symbols chasing each other across her skin. The wind howled around her, wind like the scream of dying souls, wind like the scouring sand of the desert, wind that took Poppy's hair and twisted it around her throat. And then Alex shouted, "Rapunzel, move, 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 for fuck's sake!" And then something hit her shoulder and shook her out of her terror. At an upstairs window, Alex stood with a bunch of dripping flowers in his hands, and shards of a vase were clinging to Poppy's hair. "You threw a vase at me?" she said in disbelief. "The ghost mummy was about to eat you," he called back in much the same tone. "Eat? No, it..." Poppy looked around, but the howling, screaming, terrible spirit had vanished, and she was standing in a small back street surrounded by shards of glass. "What in the hell was that?" said the man in the shop doorway. "Is this some kind of stupid performance art?" Poppy began, turning in circles. There was no sign that there had ever been anything strange going on here. "Yes," Alex called from the upstairs window. "Performance art. Sorry about that. We'll sweep up the glass later." "Hey, Poppy," he snapped. "A word, please." Well. Isn't that something? It's not going well for them. This cursed amulet is a problem. Hi, TikTok shop. If you're watching, this is my book. I wrote it. It's called The Prince of Oregon. Please buy it. It's a great gift. It takes place at the holidays. I hope you love it. It's great for anyone 13 and up, but it's not YA. Have a great day. That's my pitch. This is a book club. We read books. I write books. It's all related. Relatable content. Okay, I do have to go because I have a doctor's appointment, but if anyone does not know, we have Roll for Slime After Dark tonight, and I hope to see you all there. That's it. That's the whole kit and caboodle. Yes, books, bookity books. You should download Fable. Will you remind me not on here so that I can see it somewhere other than here and remember, because you know my brain doesn't work properly. I love you all. I'll see you this afternoon for Roll for Slime, and I hope you have a great day until then. Don't forget to drink some water and eat something and take care of yourself. Bye guys.